Hello, I'm Richard Hughes-Jones from GÉANT, and together with my colleagues from RNP and Red Clara, in this demonstration, we'd like to share with you the TCP and network performance measurements that we've been making between Latin America and Europe. We've used both the traditional path via the US and the new path using spectrum in the Ellalink provided by the Bella project. Let's start with the existing link. We have two data transfer nodes, one in Fortaleza and the other one in Paris, and RNP linked to Red Clara through the cabling from Fortaleza to Miami, Internet 2 up to New York, the ANA link to Paris and to our DTN. So this was the first route that we made our tests. And we started by looking at the TCP performance between Paris and Fortaleza using iPerf memory-to-memory tests to measure the throughput as a function of the TCP buffer size. So what we've seen here is that the one flow only achieves between 0.5 and 1 gigabit a second. There is no sign of the expected plateau. So we had a look at the other direction. Well, this was slightly better. We got up to 2.7 gigabits, and you could say that there was some sort of evidence of plateauing, but it wasn't at the point we expected. Obviously, we were hoping to get tens of gigabits a second. To understand things a little bit better, we switched to using UDP, and here we use a program called udpmons, which sends out streams of UDP packets which carefully spaced apart so that we can measure the effect of what happens on the network and on the end hosts. And the graph shows you the received wire rate as a function of the spacing. There's a clear limit of about 9 gigabits, and this part of the graph is where the spacing between the packets is most important and is proportional to 1/t, as you'd expect. So we're limited to about 9 gigabits, but equally important is the fact that there is packet loss in the network, which rises fairly linearly as the spacing between the packets is reduced. This is a really good signature for some form of network bottleneck. To confirm this, we measured the packet loss as a function of the sending data rate. And you can see here at 10 gigabits, there is a clear limitation and the packet loss takes off. Well, it turns out that with the peering with Europe, uses a 10 gigabit link on the path via the US. So that could explain why we've got fairly poor TCP throughput. Let's now move to looking at using Ellalink. We use the same two DTN nodes connected in Fortaleza and Paris, but this time going from RNP through Red Clara, we connected directly to the Ellalink submarine cable that landed in Sines, goes to Lisbon, Madrid, and Paris, and this connectivity is provided by GÉANT. So first of all, we use the 10 gigabit NICs on the PC at Paris, and we got an absolutely classic performance reaching about 9.75 gigabits with the plateau of the knee of the plateau in about the correct place and what you'd expect from the delay bandwidth product. So we were very pleased with this. There was no packet loss, and equally well is the performance in the opposite direction, going from RNP to Paris, again, achieving nearly 10 gigabits. So we were very pleased with that, and we switched now to using the 100 gigabit links. So here we are still rising nicely to a plateau of 33 gigabits. Unfortunately, we did hit some packet loss on these tests. But again, overall, the performance looks extremely good. We also measure the performance through the flow. So this is the time through the flow, and it is really smooth as a function of time. And after slow start, which happens here, we reach about 37 gigabits a second, which is really quite impressive. Remember, this is a single flow, and we are making dedicated tests. Again, in the opposite direction, we have a classically good plot of throughput versus buffer size, here reaching 18 gigs with the knee of the plateau in approximately the correct place from calculation. Again, the throughput throughout the flows is good and smooth and reaches about 18.3 gigabits. Now, we believe that the difference between the two directions is due to the fact that the two DTNs have different constructions, they have different CPUs. For example, RNP has more cores in its CPUs, but the speed of the clock is slightly lower, and this could account for the differences at these throughput speeds. We moved to looking at the time to move 1 terabyte of data between Europe and Latin America. We feel that this is quite a useful way of looking at the problem, because this is the sort of thing real users want to do. So what we did was to run IPperf3 memory to memory for 15 minutes. Now, we chose 15 minutes because the theoretical time for 10 gigabits a second is about 13.3 minutes. Now, we end up with a really stable flow at 33 gigabits a second, which gives us a time to transfer 1 terabyte of 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Looking at the other direction, the time to move from Fortaleza to Paris has an equally smooth 30 gigabit performance, and it takes just slightly longer at 4 minutes 41 seconds. So these we felt were really quite impressive and useful parameters and measurements to make to demonstrate how well we could use the link. Let me turn finally to using multiple flows across the link, which is something that would be much more common than using dedicated single flows like I've been showing so far. So again, with the same pair of data transfer nodes, we did a set of tests, starting with 1 TCP flow, which we ran for 5 minutes. When that stopped, we ran 2 TCP flows together in parallel for 5 minutes, and then 3, and then further higher numbers as well. And this is what we get in terms of the achievable TCP throughput as a function of time through the flow. For a single flow, we're getting an average of about 22 gigabits. 3 flows comes up to reaching about 50 gigabits, and 6 or more flows are up over 90 gigabits a second. Yes, there are variations. We are investigating those that we think we know what they're caused, and they're not caused by the network. They're caused by the difference in clock speeds between the two systems. Looking at the other direction, it's slightly smoother. And again, a single flow running at 30, 3 flows running about 74 on average, and 6 or more running over 90 gigabits. So to summarize, we have been examining the performance of the network paths between RNP, Red Clara, and GÉANT. We've used both the path via the US and the path using spectrum on the Ellalink submarine cable provided by the Bella project. The difference between the round trip time between these two paths goes from 165 milliseconds to 86 milliseconds, which certainly helps with the performance of long-haul TCP. We have measured, I believe, excellent TCP performance between Latin America and Europe, and of course the other way around. We did tune the DTN nodes. There are guides that we can share with you if you need to some help. And we've shown that 1 terabyte can be moved in something under 5 minutes. Multiple TCP flows between the DTN nodes can fill the link. So in conclusion, we believe that the use of spectrum on Ellalink submarine cable provided by the Bella project will greatly enhance the academic communications between Latin America and Europe. Thank you very much for listening.